Hello there, Bob with the Locksmith Tips channel. It's going to take a little while to get that to ring. The way I say it, formerly Odin's Lock. I've changed my channel name to kind of help people be able to find the tips and tricks and stuff that I share on this channel. So hopefully, you know, it doesn't confuse anybody. I am Odin's Lock. Bob. That's my business name here in Liberty, Missouri. But you know, I just talking to a friend of mine with Mike with Odin Lock Tips and Tricks. He says it's kind of hard to find your channel online. So, you know, after some thinking, talking, some discussions, I decided to go ahead and give it a try. So I changed it to the Locksmith Tips channel. Anyways, but I'm still me. That's same old Bob. I want to talk to you about something that happens occasionally. You know, on a lock job, it doesn't hardly ever happen anymore now. I mean, it's probably been years, but it's something that if you're getting into locksmithing, occasionally, you know, you'll come across this. I mean, even if you've been doing it for a lot of years and you just forget, sometimes, you know, when you rekey a lock and you're using 5-pin system with a 6-pin cylinder, and it happens because this here actually came as a KW1. It's a 6-pin, and you can do 6, but it didn't actually come with the 6. It only was pre-drilled for 5, or pre-drilled for 6, but it was pinned for 5. But I wanted to show what happens though if it was 6-pin and you decide to turn it down to 5, because say you're adding a 6-pin into a 5-pin system, and so you just thought, well, I'll go ahead and just take that one pin out, but you forget to do the one on the end of the inside of this. And so what happens is you do have the cap here that you can try to slide it off. You know, you can kind of see, I'll see if I got better lighting here. There's a way to slide that off, pull it out. Sometimes you'll mess up that little dovetail in there that keeps that pressed in there, and sometimes you can kind of bend it back in to hold it. But you know, what happens is, and we're just gonna go through this, you know, and it could be any pin. Something goes wrong, maybe you accidentally spill it, you know, like I just about did, you know, and it's a different chamber, but this is what's going to happen, you know. So like if you do this, all right, works perfect, but then you're like, oh no, I forgot to take that top pin out. And so this is one of those things that does happen, and there's not a whole lot of choice you have on this, you know.
Oh my
Some people just
God.
you know, struggle, figure out how they're going to get away. Maybe they'll go find a different cylinder in there in the toolbox, and maybe that's the last one you have. Maybe it's further up, you know, where it drops. So what happens is literally top pin with the spring just push itself in there, and so there is no bottom pin to hold that to a shear line. So I mean, you can pull your key out, but the cylinder won't turn, and it will, because that spring is in there. There is enough tolerance in there to where you can try to pull that spring through, and it sucks. You hate doing this, but you don't really have no choice unless you want to try to pull that off, and you run the risk of messing that up. And I've seen people where they'll just go ahead and drill, you know, just a little hole in the top to just top that out, you know, and then because they're not using that last chamber, then they're golden on that. But really, bottom line is, if you're new and you've never done this before, or you just don't have the experience to understand what you need to do, I'm just going to go through it real quick, and we'll just show you what you got to do. And it's kind of a, you know, it's not going to destroy your lock. What it'll do is you're going to mess up that spring that's in there, and you may scuff up the inside of this, but you can kind of crank it. And of course, it's not going to go very far, you know, but you want to move it enough to where you're at the shear line with the rest of these, because what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to knock that down. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this part here. I even brought a piece of plastic, and I want to keep it at the shear line, but you just need to get past that pin. So I'm using a hammer, and then you just knock it down, and that's what you do. Knock it down, and then you're going to have to keep going. At this point, the key is trapped. You know, you're not going to be able to get back up the shear line. You can get back up the shear line, but you're still going to get stuck having to mess with this. So you'll just find some way to put something on there, and try not to damage the threads on there, but you're just going to have to hammer it out, and you're going to drop your pins out of the other side. So as long as you get down to that shear. And so let me see if I got a better rod here. We're doing it in real time, so you're seeing what it happens. I mean, not just talking about it. So there, I'm past that. And you just got to keep going, and that's all you got. You can, if you're lucky, maybe you won't dump all your pins. You know, you got to hold that in there somehow. I don't know if that side will do it. So see if I can. And so I'm past that. And so what you have now is you got all that done. But you don't really have a choice in that. And maybe you could have chased it with something, but, and you see that's the top pin that was in that chamber. But at this point, you know, the rest of your springs are fine. You didn't, that's the other thing of having that to the side. So I might have lost this out of here, and we'll go ahead and put that back right there. That should be, so now you're back to where this needs to be, which is perfect. That's what you want. So now you're back to square one on this part. So you just go on ahead and you have to go through there and dump everything. And I know this is, you know, the front because it has KW stamped on that. And I kind of paid attention before I took it apart. But at this point, this is when you got to go on ahead and start dumping your pins, springs back in. And so, you know, you go on ahead and you'll leave it out of that last one, of course. Keep it out of that last one. No, don't do that. And so, and then you drop them in. And that's pretty much all you really got to do. And I don't think I've got all the tools for this part here. And bring them all. But that's bottom line. You know what we're doing now at this point. So I should have brought my other follower. I have one that has a groove in there. I love it a lot better. So anyways, but at this point, you know what we're doing. We're just going to go ahead and try to reload this. And I'm not going to be able to do this because I didn't bring my tweezers to this part. But anyways, so you kind of get the idea. But if you trap that, you know, where you need to go ahead and put that back in, and the rest of this is just business as usual. You know, you just figure out what springs you got. 2, 3, 4, 5. One of them's going to be damaged. Most of them will be all right. So if you have to do that, and in fact, I think that's when it got sheared. Some of them are just laying around. But bottom line is, that is what you got to do. And the rest of this is you pin it up like you normally would. And there are still some springs in some of these, I believe. But that's it, you know, on that. So once you pin it back up, you know, you go on ahead and you slide it back in and just make sure you don't do that last chamber in there. I'm going to grab some tweezers and I'll see if I can do this real quick for you. Hold on just a second. Okay. So we're going to go on ahead and put these back in here. I've already got the first one in there. Drop it in there. You kind of all know this part. Once you get through, and I have one that's, I like the followers that have the V notch. I think, you know, if you find one, I think Keytex makes one that has a V notch, and it's perfect. Sometimes, you know, some of these followers, you can, if you just have a piece of plastic, you can just put a little V notch in them. But it makes it easier to, so you're not sitting there dangling that thing around in there. But yeah, anyways, I just kind of want to cover that. This is one of those locksmith tips that I never thought about when I first got into doing locksmithing. I just was going on my merry way, and all of a sudden that happened. I'm thinking, oh man, what do I do? And you know, I didn't want to get stuck in the middle of a mess, so I had to power through. But you know, I know my son. He's kind of, you know, he's getting into this stuff, and he just, I don't know if there's much videos out there on this particular subject, so I thought, you know, why not do it? I'm going to be covering a few other things, like I got a deadbolt here. I'll show you in a second that has the issues. I got called to it. I'm just trying to put this pin back in there. This is way better to do when you got tweezers, but I'm just working with what I got right now. Everything's out in my vehicle. I am kind of setting up a new area to do this stuff, or to, hopefully the lighting's better and the shots are better. And I'm just going to fight this. So, and let me see here. This should be the last one. And, you know, fast forward at any point you need to. It gets kind of boring. But this is something that if you ever do rekeys, you're going to run into this. So now we're back to square one. And we just go on ahead and slide it back in, and you know you're good. So there's perfect. Everything's as it should be. And that's how you do that. That's, if you get that spring dropped, like you forgot to do one of your what do you say, I can't hardly think. I'm trying to look at the, yeah, if you forget to take the top pin out and you wind up dropping that in there, you know, that top pin with the spring, you're just gonna have to power through, and that's all the choice you have. to do, is be able to power that through there, knock it out, and then start over. And that's technical difficulties here. I think that was in the other spot, so we'll do this right here. I don't remember taking this apart. So anyways, yeah, there we go. All right, so that's for that. So anyways, let me take that off. Leave that up for now. I'm gonna do something else with this lock, but that's pretty much all you really got to deal with on this. So that's how you do that. Just power it on through. Anyways, hope you know, the content I bring to this channel helps you with some of the stuff, some of the tips and tricks. If there's anything you want to see that you know, it's stuff that you come across that you wonder how someone else does it. There's things that you know, I'm not a full-time locksmith. We got guys that, you know, take a dozen calls a day and do this kind of stuff. I'm not that guy. I'm a picky, choosy kind of guy. I pick the jobs that I want based on what I know I'm going to need, you know, availability-wise. Now, if I was doing this full-time, I'd do all the work. But, you know, you kind of need to know what you want to be able to do. I keep a lot of extra parts, you know, cylinders, keys. I love buying tools. That's part of the hobby side of this, is where my tools are my toys. But, you know, you got to kind of know what you want to do with this kind of stuff. And when you get into the tight spots, know how you're going to deal with it. You know, make sure that the customer is taken care of. And at the end of the day, that's the bottom line, is, you know, quality. So anyways, one other thing I'm going to probably do on one of these videos coming up is a Schlag ink code. Got a call on this for the she changed the batteries, didn't work, and this was a weird deal. Some other guy installed. She said he's a locksmith, but it didn't turn out that way. And it turned out he move this around. He wound up installing all this stuff. Took the receipt. She didn't have any way to take it back, because there is a lifetime guarantee on these things. And as a locksmith, I mean, they don't normally want to deal with a locksmith, you know, the Schlag. They will deal with me. You know, I've dealt with them a few times on some of the other jobs I've done, but a lot of times they want to deal straight with the customer, because they don't, like this situation now, I'm stuck with this deadbolt that's no good. I'll work it out with the Schlag, you know, where we get this replaced. But you know, the other guy took the receipts, and she didn't even want the guy back in her house, and that's why they originally called me, was to rekey the keys, the locks, after he had keyed it up. She was not too happy about him, and he did some stuff to the doorways that I had to fix too. But anyways, long story short, he put batteries in this. When she called me, it was the same day that after he left, she's like, I need someone else to do this job. So she called me out there to rekey it, my son and I. So we went ahead and rekeyed it. When I got to this, it was hot, you know, like really warm over the battery cover. And so I thought that's weird. So I opened it up, pulled the batteries. I thought maybe the deadbolt had been stuck trying to push into the frame, but that's not what it was. It was the batteries had been installed wrong. And I'm not quite sure. It was either he did do the batteries wrong, which I didn't think it would have worked that way, but it did. You know, how the bottom of the batteries should go up against the springs. These are all 4 AA's. Anyways, I'm going to go through this in another video, but yeah, my gosh, he did that. And when I took the battery sleeve out, it was like wet, and I thought, did he spray some kind of lube in there or what? But it turned out to be his battery acid. Pretty gross stuff. And I kind of started feeling it on my skin. You know, it wasn't real strong, but you know, it was like I could tell that wasn't lube. It was most likely battery acid. But it overheated the batteries, what he did. So anyways, sometimes when you don't do the handing, you know, on these, I think it would jam up, right? But that was all fine. It just, yeah, he did the batteries wrong. I've never seen that happen in any of these. But so, you know, it should be lifetime guarantee. I'm sure there's different things of why they would say it's not guaranteed, you know, like a operator error or something, but it wasn't me that did it. Anyways, hey, I thank you guys for watching. We'll go through this and we'll see what exactly happened to the deadbolt. And I'll put some batteries in there and we'll see what's failed. When she called me, nothing was responding. And it worked that day after we put the batteries in correctly and redid some stuff on the doorway just to make sure everything was working fine. But she said just yesterday it just totally quit working. She put new batteries in there and nothing, no lights or nothing. So I bet the battery acid in there did something. Anyways, thanks for watching. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.